This episode of the podcast was recorded on October the 9th, 2016. Hello and welcome to the very first episode of the Obscure Realms podcast. I am your host, Will Kyler, and today we are going to discuss what Obscure Realms is and what to expect from the channel moving forward, as well as a continuous segment of a personal experience that myself and my family had from 2004 to 2008. Also on this episode, we will talk about a video that's been circulating YouTube for the past couple of months now, the alien interview. All of this and more, so sit back and enjoy as we are about to enter the Obscure. The Obscure Realms podcast begins right now. Hey guys, thank you so much for joining me today on this very first episode of the podcast. So let's start off with some basics. Who the hell am I? Well, I am just like you, just an ordinary guy that wants to talk about all the spooky crap that is going on in the world today and behind the scenes. But hang on, I know what you're thinking. We don't need any more crazy conspiracy theory nut jobs on the internet. Now, I can assure you that this is not that kind of channel. So what makes this channel, this podcast, different? Well, I have always tried to live my life as honest as possible, and I view the world with an understanding and scientific mind. No, I'm not a scientist in any field, nor am I a psychologist for that matter. Like I said, I'm just an ordinary guy. I have 2 little girls, a loving wife, and a very mundane job. Now, I have studied science, business, art, the mind, but I left that stuff because life loves its little curveballs. This show will discuss all manners of paranormal phenomenon, from ghosts, spirits, UFOs, to Bigfoot, to the Loch Ness Monster, from your weird Uncle Bob to the things that go bump in the night, who might also just be your weird Uncle Bob. But the key is talking about all of this with an open mind, yet through a skeptical lens. If you are indeed a skeptic, a lot of this channel may not be for you. Why? Because nothing we talk about here will convince you that these things do exist. To a skeptic, the paranormal is ridiculous and impossible to prove, especially in today's world where you can create and post anything with complete anonymity. You can't truly believe in something and accept it as fact unless you have witnessed it yourself. Otherwise, it's just on faith. And again, we're talking about skeptics here. This brings us to our first segment, which I will dub The House. The House is an experience that has much to do with why I do what I do. I didn't always believe in the realm of the paranormal, and that I mean ghosts and ghouls and stuff like that. I had a small interest, but nothing that made me really think about it much. The House experience is what really ignited my entire enthusiasm for the paranormal. And since then, I haven't been able to get rid of it, and nor do I really want to. So, let's start this at the beginning. We moved into the house sometime in 2004. I will not tell you the street address or the house number or anything like that, but I will tell you that it is the most normal looking house and does not in any way look out of the ordinary or certainly in the least bit haunted. In the house lived my parents, my sister and her husband, and their small daughter, who was probably 1 at the time, and myself. The house had a lot of room, though you couldn't tell it from the outside, and I don't mind referencing Doctor Who here when I say that it looked bigger on the inside. When you walked through the front door, you are in the living room, with hardwood floors, which then goes directly into the dining room and kitchen. To the left from the kitchen and living room, there's a den that is separated by a doorway. The den was rather large, in and of itself, which is where my sister and her husband lived for the most part. On the other side of the kitchen was the hallway that led to the basement immediately on your right, and a bathroom across from there. My parents' room sat next to the basement, and my room next to that, which puts it next to the bathroom. Over the next few months, I would hear my parents and my sister discussing strange things that were supposedly going on. I myself didn't really believe them. I was in high school at the time, and I was a very avid gamer, so I was pretty preoccupied and had better things to do with my time. During the time at the house, I had gotten my first job working at a Dairy Queen down the street. I would come home a lot at closing time, which was around 10 p.m., usually smelling like grease. One night in particular, I had gotten home like normal and almost immediately got a call from a friend to go see if I wanted to stay at his house that night. Smelling pretty ripe, and my friend on his way, I wasn't able to take a shower before he got there, so I decided I would grab some clothes and shower at his house. When I couldn't find any clothes to take with me, I had to ask my mom where my clothes were, which she told me were in her room in the closet. After being washed and dried, she hadn't had time to put them away yet. Both lights from the kitchen and the hall were on. When I reached the doorway to my parents' room, I noticed immediately that the light was off, but more than that, it was completely dark, as if the light from the hallway and the kitchen could not penetrate the ominous darkness before me. Now, my 16-year-old self was, and still, not ashamed to say it, a little startled by the dark. Now, I thought to myself that it was no big deal, that I could simply reach my arm through the doorway and flip the switch on, but then no light came on. Apparently, one of my parents had turned the light off from the ceiling fan that was in the middle of the room, which would force me to go into the room, into that very darkness, and pull the chain that would fill the room with light. I puffed up my chest and knew that it would be just a few short steps to the chain, and I could grab my clothes and be on my way, playing Halo or something else with my best friend. So I darted to the center of the room, where the chain dangled over the foot of my parents' bed, and reached for the chain to yank down and flood this room with light. My hand was securely on the chain, but I could not pull it down. I could no longer even think about pulling on that chain. I was frozen. My eyes were transfixed, my body paralyzed, and my heart pounding in my chest. There was something laying in my parents' bed. Or something. It was laying there, straight and stiff as a board. It was a perfect human silhouette. It was darker than the darkness of the room around it. Its arms were down by its side, and its legs were together, just laying there in the middle of the bed. The fear I was feeling at that moment was one of the most intense feelings of emotions that I had ever experienced. I don't know how long I stood there staring at this thing in my parents' bed, but the logical side of myself was coming back. It had to be a trick of the eye. My mind must be playing tricks on me. I'm going to pull this chain down, and this room is going to flood with light. And this will all be over. The slightest muscle twitch of my hand began to pull on the chain, and at that moment, before I could fully pull the chain down, the silhouette opened its eyes. It was this moment that intense emotion of fear turned into a fight or flight response. This thing was real. It was no longer just my imagination or my eyes playing a trick on me. This thing was here, and it's looking at me. Its eyes opened wider than I think anyone could do. They were pure white, no pupil, no iris, just white. So white, in fact, that it seemed to give off its own light. My grip on the chain loosened, and that fight or flight response kicked in, and I was gone. I was no longer frozen in place. I turned and I ran for the door. And I didn't stop at the door of the room. I ran until I was outside the house. My eyes were teary, and the next thing I remember, I'm sitting in my friend's mom's car in the back seat. My mom had come out to see what had happened. I wasn't able to talk about it right then, but they know I seen something. It wasn't until I came back from my friend's house a couple days later that I was able to talk to my family about what had happened. But one thing was absolutely certain. I believed my family from that point on that something was going on at our house. Now, if some of that sounded like I was reading that story out loud, that is because that is exactly what I was doing. But if you like that segment and you want to hear more about the house, go ahead and subscribe now to the channel, as the house will have an update every week, a new part every week. This experience alone with this figure in my parents' bed has stayed with me for so long, I can remember it very vividly. It's something that will always be with me, as if that moment it opened its eyes and looked at me, it branded my very being. And every experience in that house that followed has as well. Just keep in mind that every time you hear next part to the house, that everything that I'm telling you in that segment happened. It was real. Alright, so moving on, I would like to talk about something that is going around YouTube the last couple of months. It's a video called The Alien Interview. The video itself is very good quality, and it would have you believe that it is a leaked video from somewhere like Area 51. It may even say that in the video. I'm going to go ahead and put the link in the description below, so if you haven't seen it and you want to go see it real quick, go ahead. You can just pause the video, come right back. I'll wait for you. And you're back. So when you watch the video, the alien itself looks very good, very well done. I don't even think this video has even been officially debunked yet, but with today's technology, you can definitely create anything to look real. The only thing that the human eye knows is fake when it comes to CGI is humans. So I'm not going to sit here and debate whether or not it's CGI, but what I can say is that it looks very well done. What I would like to talk about, though, is the video's subject matter. And no, not just the alien in the room. The alien says that he is from our future, and goes on to say that humans are an evolutionary descendant, and that they have traveled thousands of light years through time and space to get here, and that they are here to observe because the evidence of their origin was lost through nuclear war, and that human survivors then evolved over time into these beings. These beings know the mysteries of the universe, including the long-held and most famous mystery, the meaning of life. And no, it's not 42. This premise, though, is not entirely bad. If you are going to fake something like this, it is an interesting path to take it if you are trying to hoax a video. It has everything: a government conspiracy to hide the existence of extraterrestrials. It has an ominous warning of nuclear war. It even has a religious and political scapegoat to warn us that because of our religious beliefs and political ways, that we are our own undoing. But does this all make sense? Actually, yeah, it kinda does. Threat of nuclear war is a huge thing that we shouldn't ignore, and even almost came close to it not long ago in the 60s during the Cold War. Also, human history is full of horrors of war and massacres in the name of religion that even continues today. The government is also very well known for keeping secrets from its people in the name of national security. But is it really hiding the existence of ETs? Why would a super advanced, evolved form of human want to travel to the past to observe early man? The alien says itself, they know the mysteries of the universe. The one thing they may not know is who they are, why they are, and where they came from. So they travel back to find the point in time that turned the tide and led to their very being. So as far as the paranormal video goes, this is a very good one. If I were going to rate this particular video, I would have to give it like an 8 out of 10. It poses great questions and leaves you thinking, and if it is fake, it's very well done. So before we wrap up here, guys, on the first episode here, I wanted to go over the types of things you can expect from the Obscure Realms channel down the road. The first and foremost is this podcast, which I will have up every Sunday and will follow close to the same format. The channel will also be doing, along with the weekly podcast, horror-related movie and game news and reviews, with the stipulation that the movie or game is paranormal or supernatural in nature. I mean, this is a paranormal channel. We can't do all the horror kind of movies or games because not all of them are paranormal or supernatural. Also, I'll be looking into doing horror-related Let's Plays. So if there's a game that you would like to see me play, you can put it in the comments below. Which also reminds me that if you guys would like to email me your own stories or whatnot, you can have them ended up in the podcast. The email is obscurerealmsteam@gmail.com. That is obscurerealmsteam@gmail.com. I will go ahead and put that in the description below as well. Well, that will be it for me today, guys, and thank you so much for joining me on this very first episode of the Obscure Realms podcast. If you liked this video and you want to see more, please hit that subscribe button and comment below and leave your thoughts and opinions. I would love to hear what you guys have to say. My name is Will Kyler. Until next time, bye-bye.